Okay, guys, I think we can begin. So another good evening to those who have joined us now. Today we're going to go over firstly, before we begin, hope everyone's on par with their assignment submissions for today. I hope all of that has gone well for you. Next week, we have a pre-recorded session on Learning Unit 4, Theme 2. Today, we're doing Theme 1. And that will basically conclude our Learning Units 1 to 4, which is basically required for Assignment 2. So in our session thereafter, which is a live lecture, I think it's on the 19th of April, if I'm not mistaken. In that session, I will be doing a national support session with you. So basically what that is, it's basically feedback from your assignment. Each of you will get individual feedback from me whilst I'm grading. So you'll see where your mark is basically published. You will have a feedback little story on ways of improvement, basically where you went wrong and how you can improve. And try, I mean, in totality with this module, we probably have about 80 students. So that's a lot of grading for me. So I try and give you the best feedback that I possibly can. Based on that, I will put everything in writing in a document just so that I can generalize some of the feedback. So you have an understanding of where you went wrong in assignment 1 and how you can improve for assignment 2. If I'm not mistaken, I think assignment 2 is due on the 9th of May. So you have just less than a month. I think it's like 3 weeks to basically work around that feedback. And then obviously action it in assignment 2 as well as action it for your examination. Furthermore, I will go through a PACER for assignment 2 on the 19th of April. So you know where each question basically features from which learning unit in the MO. So it gives you a little bit more of a guideline. I did share the PACER for assignment 1 under the announcements, but we haven't had an opportunity to basically go through and discuss it. So I hope that it helped just a little bit, but in assignment 2, we definitely would be able to go through the actual PACER with you guys so that you have an indication of what to look at. I think, yeah, basically I'll give you feedback from your assignment 1 on that. Your assignment 1, I'm obviously going to start grading it from tomorrow. The results will be published on, I would like to say around about the 12th of April. I think that's the deadline that was given. So just look out for that, but I'll share it in the announcements and the WhatsApp group just so that you're on par and when to look for your published results. Okay. Is there any questions? I think before we just get into anything, is there any questions, anything that you need help with? I think just raise your hands. If nothing, then we can move on. Okay, Douglas, let's go.
Hi, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ma'am, I'm just wanting to find out for question 4 for the assignment.
Okay.
Is there any specific words or can we just strictly go with regards to that rubric?
Go with the rubric. If they haven't indicated that there is a specific word count, then yeah, just go with what you can go with. I just want to pull out the assignment. I don't have it open, so just so that I can double check on my side
No problem.
that there is no. Sorry. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there is a specific word count from what I'm looking at. So I think obviously work with it from the rubric. So if it's telling you, for instance, a 20 mark for content, 2 marks for structure, and 5 marks for argument, whatever it is, make sure you have a flow in your essay. So you have an intro, you have a conclusion, and you have a good structure. So you actually carrying out your topic throughout throughout that essay. You're not just jumping from one place to another place. There needs to be a good flow with it. If obviously with there not being a word count, word it or provide sufficient content to cover the number of marks that's being allocated, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, 100%.
Cool.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Okay. Let's go on to our theme. All right. So today's theme is focused on quality and some of like the theories that a lot of businesses use when it comes to how do they manage quality, what sort of quality controls do they have in the workplace in order for their products to be, attractive to the market. So we're going to start off with a basic definition on what is quality management. And all it is making sure that you maintain a level of excellence in a product that you have, a service that you're offering, which in turn allows for excellence and success for the business itself. So some of the different definitions or the different descriptions of quality itself comes with various ISO accreditations. So ISO is International Standards Organization, and basically what the ISO specific, you have different. So it's 8402 is more defining your features, your characteristics of a specific product, and how does that product now satisfy different needs for a customer. In business itself, you'll see an organization needs to be ISO accredited if they are storing items in a warehouse. There needs to be an ISO accreditation of 9,000, or if there's an environmental standard, 14,000, 9,001. So there's various different ISO accreditations that needs to be upheld by an organization in order for them to follow certain standard procedures. So one of it is your ISOs. The second one is, which we'll go through more in detail as we go throughout the theme, but it's Deming's theory. And Deming's theory basically is having some sort of degree of uniformity where it's at a lower cost for the market. So your plan, do, check, act. It's something that you don't have to put in a lot of money in terms of investment in order for you to do PDCA within your organization. But we're going to go through it a little bit more in this lecture. And I'm going to provide you with some examples so that you can actually humanize the theory and you can see how it works in a basic organization or in sort of like an everyday sort of lifestyle, because a lot of times textbook teaches you theory. To bring it down and humanize it, unfortunately, it can be a little bit difficult. So I'm trying to provide you with some sort of information. We're going to go through the Duran theory as well. And basically this is how well can you use the product? So it's a fitness for use product. And how is the quality then speaking on fitness for use? And then we're going to go over Crosby's theory, which is basically conformance, meaning that the product needs to conform to what the customer's requirements are. And then the last one we're going to go through, which I didn't include here, and I've added it at the last minute, is Imai's Kaizen theory. So your Kaizen theory is basically room for zero error, sort of reducing waste as much as possible, reducing defect as much as possible. And one of the businesses that uses this a lot is Toyota, and more from an automotive perspective. But as we go along, I'll provide you with examples so you're able to understand, how it all works. So the first thing that first portion that we're going to go through is components of quality. So the different definitions of quality vary, components of quality vary, but this is basically one of the most used and most commonly accepted ideas that a lot of businesses use in today's society. So what does quality mean for a business? Quality basically means whether a customer is satisfied. the goods that an organization or the service that an organization is now providing, does it now satisfy the needs and the expectations of a specific customer? So here, the first one that we talk about is quality and product policy. So with product planning, it involves a lot of decisions about production and services that a firm will market. A product or a service is basically a combination. Sorry, guys, just give me 1 second. I'll be back in 1 second. Apologies, guys. That was just my little one banging at the door. So yes, when we talk about quality and product policy, a lot of times when we are, when you're planning how to develop a product, a lot of the decisions about how the production process is going to take place and what sort of services you're going to basically market to customers, a lot of this has different characteristics, whether it's something that is physically tangible like a good or it's intangible like a service. And you sort of like hope and pray that a customer will, accept it or like it or be satisfied with it. And also the price that you are now selling at will be accepted by the customer. So product planning basically must decide, whether what sort of market segment you want to go into, what sort of level of performance is accepted by that specific customer, and what price you need to basically be charged. So therefore, all of these needs to be done when you are now product planning or planning, basically what product you want to market. And quality features a lot in this step. Because you obviously want a product that is of high quality that customers will enjoy and be satisfied by. The next one is when we talk about product design. So a lot of times the business will go into the marketplace and have a very specific idea of what the product should be and how the design should be outlined. You want to understand how the appearance of the product is going to be, or a depiction of what the service is going to be from, or what the customer's expectation of the service should be. What is the price? How much of volume? And, we did touch on forecasting, etc. So a lot of that would then come into place when you are designing the product, because you want something that is to be designed at a lower cost so that you can now push out volumes to now sell. So a lot of times you need designers involved in this so that they can build the product according to the product quality or according to a specific quality level, and have a specification of what that product is going to be. Then we have the manufacturing and the quality when it comes to manufacturing. And manufacturing is basically to make sure that the specifications you've now designed of that product now comes into realization. So you should understand from a quality side what is the limits or the acceptable limits in terms of what quality should be. It's you need a sort of tolerance level that needs to be determined. And you need to understand what your volumes are going to be, what's your different specification. And, you need something that is going to produce excellence, and it's not just going to be something that is, below average. And then the last one is having a quality and then the final use of product. So your final use of product is your customer. So what is the expectation of how the product should be formed? How is the customer now going to react to it? And what is the fitness for use? So customer, if you take yourself as an example, when you purchase a product and it's of, it has a defect on it, you don't care why the product is defective. You basically just want the product to perform. But the customer or the organization or the business is actually producing it, they care if it's defective. So, you need to have you need to have some sort of introduction to how to use the product or a different feature, or if you have a new service offering, let's say you're part of a logistics industry and you're offering a new service within your business, you need to explain what the product is, how does it feature, what is the different services. Like for instance, if you have a new car, for instance, and you know, like the newer cars, it has a different like switch to turn on a headlight, or maybe it's the hazards is at a different place. So this is a new feature, and it may not be as visible as your older feature. So you are unaware of what that new design is, and therefore you need to be taught how to use it. So we need to be able to give a proper training and let the customer understand what the feature is, so that when they finally use the product, they are getting the best use out of it. Okay. Then we move on to our quality management principles. So there's 8 principles in total. And it's basically something that was developed from your ISO, so your International Standards Organization. And they developed these sort of principles as a framework to ensure that there's always improving performance by organizations. So different sort of ISO, so 9000, for instance, it defines how your business, how a business conducts its business. You know, what works, what doesn't work, understanding who your suppliers are, understanding who your customers are. And it basically prevents any sort of non-conformities during the different stages of supply chain. So whether it's a procurement function, a manufacturing function, a design function, you want to have as much non-conformance as possible. And basically these are sort of the principles that ISO will then follow. If you go into a corporate, let's say private organization, or if you are currently in a private organization, your organization will be at most times, you know, a rally around ISO accreditations. And you may know that you're ISO accredited, but you don't know what it means to be ISO accredited. So 9000 is probably the most familiar one. 14,000 is like the next one. And these are some of the principles that you will then focus into. So the first one is customer focus. So your business basically depends on your customer. So therefore, you need to understand what your customers' needs are. You want to be able to exceed their expectations. You don't want to produce a product or deliver a service and you don't know what your customer is looking for. If I am, let's say, delivering a service and I'm like in the logistics industry, I don't want to develop a lane into, let's say, Russia, and then there is no take for the service or trade lane into Russia. But China is a huge trade lane. The USA is a huge trade lane. The UK is a huge trade lane. So I need to listen to my customers to understand where they are importing their products from or exporting their products to, in order for me to look at developing a trade lane service that is, you know, the best in the market, in order for me to cater to my customers' needs. So I need to listen to them first in order for me to now develop something. Then we go into leadership. And I think from a leadership perspective, this is very important because as a leader in a business, you basically need to have an internal working environment that's conducive to an employee being happy, an employee having a direction, having a goal, a KPI, and them to understand what the purpose of the business is. So it needs to be a very supporting working environment in order for them to progress. So you may think that, you know, how does this fall into ISO accreditation? But a lot of times, in order for a business to pass an ISO accreditation, they have external quality companies coming in and actually viewing How do you focus on your customers? What is the leadership like? Let me speak to the employees to see whether they actually noticed, whether the environment is supportive. Maybe it's an environment where it's very dictatorship. Then you won't get your ISO accreditation, because you need to know how the business works, and it needs to be conducted in a way that is of stock standard. So yeah, so that's leadership. Then we have engagement of people, or basically involving people. And this is basically involving all sort of like stakeholders in a business to make sure that they achieve the goal. Every single level in a business, so whether it is an executive committee or a senior management level, mid-level management level, or low-level employees, all of them have a role to play in the business. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has some sort of process of how they can improve within their division or department. So it's listening to them, understanding whether the abilities that they currently have is fully being utilized. One of the biggest traits from comparison to like a leadership is that you need to listen to your staff and you play, or your people, and basically play to their strengths. If someone is good at for instance, in front of customers, then you play to their strength and allow them to be customer facing. If the admin is not so great, then you have somebody else doing the admin. So it's playing to people's strength and making sure that you're involving all of them, towards a common goal within the business. Then we have a process approach. And this is basically where you have different processes and different SOPs within a business. And SOPs are very important, especially if you are in a manufacturing industry and you have different line services, like different different products going through different lines. There needs to be different process flows and SOPs for those specific functions. So this is very important to making sure that your work is done according to that SOP, because a lot of times when you falter, then opens up room for error, which costs businesses money. So making sure that it's also managed appropriately, and you have a lot of efficiency when this, it's a well-proven SOP that works. So by following it, you are basically, getting 100% success rate from it. Then we have something called relationship management. And this is basically having different relationships within different departments. You want to be able to use different interrelated, processes, or manage those processes within different departments, which will then only contribute towards the success of the business, giving better, organizational efficiency, better effectiveness, and then at the end of the day, everyone's reaching their objective. And then we have effective-based decision-making. And with this, we are basically looking at how can you basically acknowledge that decisions are based on factual data. It's based on having data analytics within a business. You cannot just wake up one day and decide, I'm changing this process because I felt like it, or I had a dream about it. There is a difference between doing that and being successful. You could have a feeling that it's going to work, but you need actual proof, especially when you're in a business setting and an organization. You need to have some sort of data analytics and work being done around it, and a business plan, in order for you to make a decision that this is the new process that I'm following. So you need to apply basically having something that's more evidence-based or more factual to decisions, that you can have better accuracy, you can have better reliability of the process, and you can use the information and the data that's provided. And then the last one is having continuous improvement. So you want to have continuous improvement from a business perspective and the performance that it basically gives. You should be using this as a business objective and understanding how improvement is then possible. A lot of times quality is based on improvement. And if the improvement is not gained in your feedback session or in your act session, then how do you now go back to the drawing board to then get that improvement going? So this basically speaks on the different quality principles or quality management principles. And a lot of times this is used from an ISO accreditation, more especially to a 9000. Okay, and I mean, a lot of the times when it comes to the 8 principles, this is quite easy to understand because you can use this in, like, if you really think about it, whether you're in a business or you're not in a business right now, you can understand where each of it takes its course within an organization. And it makes sense because you cannot get full quality of your product or your service if the wheels are not turning in the right direction. It's like a bicycle chain, for instance. Every sort of link needs to be interconnected in order for the chain to be operating and the bicycle to be moving. So yeah, basically all of these principles act in accordance with each other. Then we move on to a topic called total quality management. Or called TQM. So from a TQM perspective, it's how you can manage an organization so that every job is done correctly, the first time. So you don't want to do multiple chances with a particular job. And based on this, one of the approaches to managing that quality is having more of a systems, especially when it comes to the different phases of supply chain. So looking at it from whether it's a procurement perspective, an operational, a logistics function, a manufacturing function, basically all of these functions need to be, managing quality and being adopted from that perspective. So TQM, some of the drivers is just in time, which we are going to go through. And just in time is basically producing your different products just in time. So it's having an understanding of what your volume is going to be, and you're producing for that specific volume, and you're then selling it at that specific volume. So you're not, for instance, if your demand is speaking to 500 products, you are producing at that specific quality and you're selling at that specific quality. But if you are overproducing, you're now going to storage. What happens when you have products in storage? You have cash flow issues because you now have cash sitting in those specific products. Then we have the Kaizen approach, which we're going to go through as well. And your Kaizen approach is basically where you develop a culture of having a continuous improvement. So everyone in this sort of organization or your business works for having an improvement in every stage. And one of it is Toyota, which I'll go through as well. Global competition. So I think from a quality perspective, there's a lot of competition for like sales and profits from customers in, various industries, whether it's private sector, public sector, SOEs. And basically a lot of businesses are now looking at going the 4IR route or the Internet of Things or the technology way so that they can become the best when it comes to manufacturing in order for them to have a competitive advantage. So this is basically one of the drivers of how they're now pushing for quality. And then the last one is having quality philosophies. So this is basically developing or implementing some of the quality philosophies or quality processes, whether it is, Kaizen or whether it's your PDCA, whatever philosophy it is or philosopher that has created one of those philosophies, by adopting it, you now are pushing with the concept of doing things right the first time. And it also basically has a best practice benchmark that's associated with it. So you become basically a monopoly in that specific industry because you're now pushing for quality above everything else. Okay. So then we go through to some of like the gurus when it comes to quality, right? And this is like more from an interesting perspective. But the first one is your Deming cycle. So this is Deming's contribution to quality. So Deming developed in 1986. There's a lot of different points that Deming uses, okay, which I'm not basically going to go over, but just to pick on a few. It's one of it is, making sure that you have different training. And basically what it is how can you now solve problems and improve quality within your business over a specific time period? Whether it's getting people to train on the job, making sure that whatever your data analytics or your statistics is now showing you, you are able to learn from that and then train people appropriately. You want to break barriers between different departments where you're focusing more on them working as a team within a department as opposed to working as an individual. So breaking down the different barriers within a department and allow your every department to see the bigger picture, which is their specific goal or their specific objective. So the Deming cycle specifically is called a PDCA. So you'll see this little diagram I have here. Number one, it starts with P. So P is plan, do, check, and act. Okay. So basically what the PDCA cycle is, and this is also very important because it may come up at some point, is a process for how you can improve quality, and how can you now solve problems and improve that quality over time. And it's more like a quality assurance cycle. And then when we go into it a bit more deeper, so if we look at plan specifically, plan means you need to have a definition of what your objectives are and what methods you're going to use to achieve your objective. How can you then, if you do have a problem, how do you now identify your problem? Looking at your current situation in your business, what is the gaps in the market, and how can you now fill those gaps in the market? So you need to have a plan for closing that gap. So what sort of plan are you then developing? The do, the do means you are creating different sort of provisions or conditions to achieve your objective. So you implement a plan and basically you try to measure their performance. Check. So check means deciding whether whatever you have now done in terms of preparing a plan, is it working? Is it now progressing? Are you seeing improvements in terms of quality? So you're using different KPIs, so key performance indicators, in order for you to monitor your results. So for instance, if I am in a sales environment and my salespeople have a target and they have, let's say the target is 50,000 Rand a month, and they are now not on target. What is my plan to get them on target? So my plan may be, I work specifically with them in order for me to develop a pipeline. So I'm now planning what my plan is going to be, or deciding what my plan is going to be, and that is creating a pipeline. How do I now do it? Research, word of mouth, referral, blitz sessions, telesales sessions, etc. Now I'm checking. So based on this, based on the doing part of it, I now check whether I've made any progress. And if I've not made any progress, how do I now go back and, redo the plan in order for me to now get myself back up and running. Then it brings us to the last part, which is if your check is not being performed according to the plan, then you need to get another plan and you need to action it appropriately. So you decide on what changes needs to be happening, what is the improvement plan, and then you now need to start the preparation for the next PDCA. So one of the examples from this perspective is, I'm sure all of us have an idea of what a e-commerce store is. So this is an online store like a Shein, like a Temu, like Superbalist, for instance. And an example is improving how reliable that website is. And especially if we're looking at it from, let's say, a Black Friday perspective. We all know a lot of times, and I mean, this may be in previous years, I haven't seen it last year, but a lot of customers don't have, or businesses don't have reliable websites to cater for an increase in demand when it does happen. So let's say that this e-commerce store is experiencing a lot of website outages or problems with their website. So from a planning perspective, they firstly needs to, the problem is that they've been experiencing a lot of these outages. Customers are now not satisfied. They're losing a lot of sales. They're losing key customers. What is their goal? The goal is to reduce the website downtime and improve the reliability of the website so that customers keep coming back. So the plan for this is implementing a system that can monitor how well the server is doing and performing. How can they best collect different data, and what is then the causes of the outages? From a do perspective, they now need to implement this monitoring system on a server so that they can test it. From a check perspective, they now need to analyze all of the data that was collected from this monitoring system, and they now need to identify what is the root cause of the outage. So from an act, based on the different analysis, they need to now implement the changes, which is going to address the root cause. Maybe they had hardware that was quite old-fashioned, so maybe they now need to upgrade this. Maybe they need to get better coding done on the back end of their website, so they need to optimize on that. Maybe they have not a great LAN system or a network system or infrastructure. So how best can they now improve this infrastructure? And then you monitor the website performance after all of these changes that you've done to make sure that the problem doesn't persist. So a lot of businesses use the PDCA, especially when it comes to an operational perspective. So whether it's, you're in a logistics environment and you're in an ops space, a lot of times it becomes a trial and error situation. So PDCA works on that. You do use data analytics and a problem-solving technique, but you will never know until you go through the whole circular process to understand whether the plan is working or not and what you need to do to now revisit this plan. That's how you're going to continuously improve quality within the workspace or within that specific department. Okay. Then we have the next one, which is our Crosby's 5 absolute of quality. So Crosby speaks on, conformance and basically adopting the theory of doing it right the first time attitude. So when you are doing, a specific plan, your plan needs to be in a process of, let's say you're in the manufacturing industry and your plan is to produce economies of scale, let's say it's 50 products in a specific line. The way your process flow needs to happen and your SOPs need to happen is that when you are producing, all 50 of your products need to be of the same quality. So you're now not getting 45 of good quality and 5 that's defective. So when you are doing it, it needs to be right the first time. The second part of it is the system of quality is basically having prevention. So you want to use a lot of process control systems so that you can make a lot of corrective changes when a problem occurs so that you can prevent it so you'd rather be proactive than reactive. So you want to prevent it before it actually happens. Then we go into zero defect. And this is when you are running through your production and your manufacturing process, you want to have as zero defects as possible. When you do have defective products, that is cash flow or your cash basically sitting in those products, because at the end of the day, depending on what your product is, you can sell them or you can't sell them. So having 0 defects is basically, shifting it to 100% gold quality. And then you have the measurement of quality is the price of non-conformance, right? And then the last one is there's basically no such thing as a quality problem. So that's how Crosby basically pushes his 5 quality or 5 absolutes of quality, and that's how he uses his definitions for TQM. Okay, then we have Juran. Okay, so it's Juran's quality to TQM, and it focuses on a quality trilogy, which is quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. So from a quality planning perspective, you want to be able to define what your different requirements of quality is. You want to set your goals before your operations actually begins. From a quality perspective, you want to know what your measurements are, what your SOPs like, and you basically want to measure what your performance is and if there's any necessary action that needs to take place. And then quality improvement is basically, if you are now going through the process, what is the different projects for improvement? How can you then produce a better product? And what is the better way of doing it? How can you now adopt a new way of doing things right the first time? So that's basically the 3 trilogies of Juran. And I mean, like, for instance, let's give you an example of a call center. Okay, so we all know call centers, they call us about 1 million times in a day. So basically, they identify who their customers are. And then they determine sort of like, and there's a lot of analytics that goes behind call centers, and they call you because you had researched something on Google, insurance, for instance. And then you start having all of these call center calls from different insurance companies, basically just asking you if you need it. So they understand who you are, they then determine what is your need, and then through different customer feedbacks and market research, they try and give you or sell you a product. So this is them planning, controlling it, and then improving it. If, for instance, you say, no, I don't need this, I need something quicker, or I've had a problem with my previous insurance company, and the call center sucked, I need quicker resolution time, I need better, clear, more transparent communication and feedback. So they then use all of this into trilogy when it comes to quality. Then we go into Imei's Kaizen approach, okay? So when we look at it from a Kaizen perspective, so basically Imei introduced the Kaizen approach, which is continuous process improvement. So just making sure that your entire process is continuously improving. And this is, you can understand, Imei is a Japanese, and it contributed towards the Japanese being highly successful and very competitive in not only the automotive sector, but in the manufacturing sector as well. So Kaizen allows for everybody within an organization to constantly have improvement in every process that they are involved in. So some of the key steps is you want to have an operation that's quite standardized, not bringing in any difficult processes or steps into the actual production process, so that it's standard as possible and people understand, where things are going wrong and how can they then improve on it. And you want to be able to measure it. And then you have basically a cycle that goes on. So one of the commonly used, the company that commonly uses Kaizen, you can understand, Toyota is Japanese, is the Toyota Production System, so TPS as it's known. And this is based on Kaizen principles. And they've used this or implemented this to have continuous improvement from a manufacturing perspective. Ford, another example, they also use Kaizen in order for them to cut timing down in the different manufacturing processes. So you can understand they, insert a bumper, insert a door, etc. So in all of their manufacturing process steps, it's now introducing Kaizen so that they have a standardized process involvement in every step of the business in order for them to have continuous improvement. We also, from a software development perspective and an organization, can also use Kaizen because they can have a lot of methodologies that's introduced into their business so that it can optimize their workflow, their lead times can be better, they can have better team productivity. So how does continuous improvement, and one of the things is and if you're in the job environment or working environment, you will know this, but when you're sitting in a private sector, I think it's also probably in public. I've never worked in public to understand it. But if you're having a problem with your laptop, for instance, what is the one thing that they ask you to do is log a ticket. That ticketing system is actually a continuous process for improvement. So it has to go through a systems process in order for them to improve on it each time. They'll give you a lead time for the ticket. So they'll say ticket number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has been created for X person. Your lead time is 1 to 3 hours. And then, it may even be better. So all of these people basically use different Kaizen approaches or how better they can improve their different processes. And it's also if they are short staffed, let's say, for instance, they only have 2 people that's sitting in a technical space within the IT department and you're now sitting with 1,000, 2,000 employees, there's no way they can just help someone if they just pick up the phone. It has to go through a process, and the process is the ticketing process. As much as it can frustrate everybody, it still is a process that is followed and maintained, and people know what the process is. Okay, I think this is actually bringing us to our last slide now. Okay, so this is the different characteristics of total quality management. And the first one is basically including all people or all participants within the supply chain. So when we look at the supply chain specifically, we can look at logistics, production management, and operations, procurement. These are some of the departments that form part of the supply chain, for instance. By including all of them in here, it's basically going to talk to you having good quality management because everyone is interrelated and will contribute towards the next sector within your supply chain. So you want to include everybody that's part of your supply chain. You need to have continuous improvement. There always needs to be a process, whether it means that you introduce something like Deming's PDCA, of how you can continually improve your processes within your business. That needs to happen, and that needs to be basically the cornerstone of your business, is how you're going to get continuous improvement within your business. All businesses within an organization, for instance, that is part of your supply chain needs to have some sort of responsibility from a quality perspective. So if, for instance, you have 4 departments in an organization, there needs to be at least one person per department that is now responsible for what quality needs to happen. So if you're in a manufacturing space, you need to understand that quality control is very important so that you have 0 defects of your product. So what is then the responsibility of the project manager within the manufacturing space to make sure that 0 defects happen by ensuring that a process flow is followed? If there is defects, why is there defects? And now you go through the process again of improving the plan to now get 0 defects. Team problem solving, basically having a cross-functional, problem-solving basis so that you have quality goals that is now being shared and that you have very stable relationships as well. So making sure that everybody is now involved with the product solving, of how better way to get quality improvement within the organization. And I mean, like a lot of businesses like Woolworths, for instance, Woolworths has a very open door policy in terms of solutions within a store. So as an employee of Woolworths sitting in a store, you can go on and say, X, aisle one, for instance, carries bread or fruit or whatever it is, or vegetables, and it's not looking very attractive. It's not being sold because people are now going straight into like the chocolate aisle. So how do we now switch things around to get the attention of consumers? So it's having a team approach and everybody now putting in an opinion of how well to improve processes within a business. And then when we talk about feedback on customer satisfaction, especially when we're talking about it from a quality perspective, it's basically a very important input of a process, because you want your customer to be able to tell you whether your product is working or it's not, or your service is good or it's not. And they can only tell you that when you now include them. So you need to be very inclusive when it comes to your customers. And that's how your development on your process flow is going to follow. If your product's not working, unfortunately, it's not going to get sold. And if it doesn't get sold, your business is going to be in a loss. So having an understanding of whether that specific market segment of customers has the right quality of product that is giving them the satisfaction that they want is very important, because that will make sure that your process flow is in a correct space, and you can just get basically continuous improvement from there and have a do it the right the first time attitude. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session today, which obviously featured mainly on quality. This is obviously part of your assignment too. As I said, in our session on the 19th of April, I'll take you through the NSS and the PACER, just so that you have a little bit more understanding of what is required from here and what specifically to focus on. Is there any questions from anybody so far? Okay, so today I will share the slides as well as the recording. And next week I will be doing a recording on Learning Unit 4 Theme 2. And then we'll have our national support session thereafter. But all the best. If you haven't yet submitted your assignment, please do so by 23:59 p.m. I do not want to give anybody penalties for late submissions. Make sure it's submitted on PDF. I had a few questions on that today. So make sure that that's submitted on PDF. Make sure that your Turnitin percentage is low, please. I don't want to also penalize you on minor or major referencing errors. If you're unsure about referencing, please visit your student channels, understand how to reference, and you'll be fine. Okay, all the best with your submission, and we will chat soon. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yes.
Larissa, I have one question about the Turnitin. Will we have a second chance maybe to upload the assignment? Let's say maybe the percentage. Do you have a second chance to upload again?
Yes, you do.
And is it highlighted where you need to change?
I'm pretty sure, I don't know from a student perspective, but I am pretty sure that you would be able to get an originality report once you submit. Your originality report will then highlight, where your information is basically coming from that is plagiarized specifically, or maybe not referenced correctly. And then you will obviously have an opportunity to change that and then resubmit. I've had students in previous modules that have submitted and turned it in, or submitted via ARC multiple times. So I obviously take the most recent submission. So if you are submitting at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., I will take the 10 p.m. submission.
Okay, it makes sense then.
Yeah, but obviously don't want to do it at 11:30 and then
Yeah.
resubmit at 11, change stuff and then resubmit it. So try and get it going as quickly as possible so you at least meet that time frame.
All right, cool. Thanks, eh?
Okay, sure. No problem. Thanks, guys.